Hey everyone, it's Michael Fair at filmfestivalcircuit.com, and I'm here today to talk about the Georgia Comedy Film Festival Summer 2024, which will be taking place next month on August the 28th. For the first time, we're going to be at the landmark Midtown downtown, beautiful theater. Previously, we were at another theater, but things kind of grew. We needed a little bit more elbow room. We're getting a bigger audience. We have a nice networking session planned. We've got an awards program, and we have plenty of film screenings. So if you're into comedy, film, and you want to laugh, come on down to the Georgia Comedy Film Festival in Atlanta, and you'll have some fun. And we also like to focus on the films and productions that are going to be made tomorrow, and those are by our screenwriters. And we're lucky to be joined today by a screenwriter whose screenplay, Good News Gary, is nominated for the Best Screenplay Award. Not just one of our individual categories like romantic comedy or horror comedy or any of those things. Overall, one of the highest scoring screenplays in the entire festival. How's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chad. Well, please introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me a little bit about Good News Gary.
Sure. Well, I'm a screenwriter based in the Northwest. I live just south of Seattle, Washington. And I've been doing this for about 6 years. I've spent, it seems like a lifetime in marketing and communications in different levels. And I started out as a newspaper reporter. And over the years, I've been telling other people's stories and decided I want to tell some of my own. And took a screenwriting class. And here we are now. The screenplay is a finalist in a major contest. So I'm pretty excited about that.
The word I'm sorry, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
I was going to say the word that keeps popping up from our judges in Georgia is refined. Refined. I hear the word refined a lot, that you've gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. And I'm sorry, I had to blurt in there and say that. But please tell us a little bit more about this story that seems to be resonating with not just our festival, but others as well.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. It's a story that came out of the pandemic. If you turned on the TV at any point during the pandemic, TV news was just pummeling you with just negative stuff. And there was a lot of bad stuff going on, but it was just nonstop. And then they would close every news segment with a little squirrel on water skis and say, "Have a great Tuesday." And I just thought, that is such bullshit. I mean, there's so much other good stuff out there happening. And having been and in my communications professional working with, I have followed it very closely. And I've always been intrigued by the notion that they focus on the negative news and then just throw in this 30-second blurb at the end that's good news. And I thought, let's flip this. Let's have good news be the focus of this story and of this reporter. And I can't remember who said it, but they said, put your characters up in trees and then start throwing rocks at them. And that's what this story is. As Gary's up in this tree, and we start throwing rocks at him to see how he responds. And it's really about a guy who's had a bit of a rough start in life, having lost his wife, and now he's taking care of his daughter, who's in her first year in college. And he is a good news reporter. He does a segment called Good News Gary every night in a fake Seattle TV station. And it's very popular, but because there's an aging anchor who wants to resurrect her career, she works with a station manager to get Gary fired. And Gary gets fired at the same time he learns that his daughter has been accepted to the University of Washington. And it's her dream school. It's what the mother wanted her to, where her mother wanted her to go as well. So now Gary's forced into a situation of having to take his skill set somewhere else. Well, none of the other TV stations want to take on the good news segment because they don't think that sells. And he is forced to become somebody he's not, which is an investigative journalist. And so that's where the comedy is him converting from this good news, positive focused story to having to get into the seedy side of journalism and really get into the grit of our society and report on some of the negative and bad stuff that's happening. So the story kind of follows that arc, and around him are a videographer and his daughter, and of course you've got the smarmy, slicked back hair station manager who just wants to find a way to make more money. And So that's where we pull a lot of the comedy from.
We've got good characters. You've got conflict. You've got stakes. You've got an arc. I mean, it's very well done. Like I said, that word refined sticks out there. But with a character like Gary, it's very relatable. And I've got to think, what's your inspiration for the story? What's your inspiration for that character? Where did this come from?
So Gary came out of, I guess, probably an amalgamation of characters and people that I've known over the years. Somebody who's super positive, almost to the point of being, syrupy, where you need to see a dentist every time you hang out with this person. But it also has flaws, just like all of us. This person is Gary is committed to this, but he then doesn't stay true to himself and does this conversion over because he's worried about being able to provide college or provide money for his daughter's tuition. And so he makes this drastic change. And there's a scene in the story where he doesn't necessarily go through just a change in jobs. He goes through a physical change. He's known for his big bushy mustache as Good News Gary, but the experts that work with the anchors, the consultants, and I've known friends that have been in the business that have gone through the consultants, and it's a very trying time for them because they're told, "Oh, you should be a blonde, not a brunette," and then the next time you see her on the newscast, she's. So I took those experiences and then watched over and over the scene where Frankenstein is brought to life. Not only in Mel Brooks' film, but the original Frankenstein movies, and tried to recreate that as Gary goes through this extreme makeover to become this investigative journalist. So he goes through a metamorphosis physically, but also emotionally, intellectually, and professionally. I don't know that anybody has gone through that in my personal world. I just took what some examples are, then you of course make it extreme.
Where does this film fit in the market? Like, if you were to tell somebody, hey, if you were fans of ABC, you might be fans of this story as well.
Sure. Well, I think there's what we've seen in the past in kind of TV news, movies, or series is the serious side of it, and this pokes fun at the news media a little bit. And as a local Seattle anchor shared with me, not a little bit, but a lot, he thought I was a little too harsh on the news media, but we all have our perspectives, right? You're sitting behind the desk or you're sitting in front of the news desk. You have a different perspective. This movie, I think, is it's a lighter comedy. It's not crazy, wacky like an Adam Sandler movie, but it also has a heart too. Judd Apatow is brilliant at creating, and John Hughes, brilliant at creating comedy movies where there's also a heart to it. And that's what I really wanted to do with this. So I think if you're a fan of John Hughes, if you're a fan of Judd Apatow movies, there's characters that are extremely flawed, goofy, funny, but yet they have they have good intentions. They're well meant to go into the world and do what they can to make it better. And sometimes they fail. And that's where we draw the comedy from in this story, I think.
Interesting. Well, what else do you have planned for the future? Any other projects on deck?
Well, of course, like any of these stories, you go back and you kind of rewrite and rethink and retool them. So I'm constantly looking at Good News Gary, but I've got a pilot that I'm going back through some rewrites on right now about another news-based story. It's a pilot about a LA-based news photographer, and kind of see the 70s, 80s, and 90s through his lens. And it's won some awards, but I think we've got to go back and retool it a little bit to really get it to a point where a studio would say, yes, I'm interested, and an actor would want to play that role. So I'm excited about that because that actually follows a lot of my background in life as a journalist. And then I'm starting a biopic on the probably most famous Bigfoot hunter in the world. And was a former, he's passed away now, but he was a professor at Washington State University, just south of where I lived in Spokane, Washington, and grew up. And his name's Grover Krantz, and Grover spent his life trying to find Bigfoot, and was a fascinating, well-known anthropologist, but because he was searching for Bigfoot, he never achieved the same status and accreditation that he probably deserved for his studies in anthropology. And he just has a fascinating story arc. His story ends with his body and that of his dog in the Smithsonian Institution, in the anthropology part of the museum. It's
wow.
Crazy story. And I've been fortunate enough to meet most of his mentees who are now carrying the torch for finding Bigfoot, some students. It's just been a really fascinating journey of interviewing people, talking about Grover and telling his story. It's also kind of sad too, because he really died trying to find this creature.
Well, going back to Good News Gary for a moment, what's the future on that one? Is that something that you are maybe looking to sell, or is it something that you're going to team up with some people and try to create?
So at this point in my career, I'm going to focus on the writing part of it, and I'll let other people handle the the putting together the package to get this made. However, I've got a marketing background, and so I realize that some of that may fall back on me in terms of marketing this to actors and studios and producers. So I think it starts with having a great story, and if the story is there, it's actor bait. And if the story's there, the producer's going to look at this and say, I think we can make some money. So that's kind of where it's at right now. I'm actually trying to shop it, trying to make connections with people that have faith in the story and believe in it, and can see if we can push it to the right folks to take a serious look at it.
Well, I hope this works out. Definitely the judges here love it. I know Portland Comedy Film Festival has had success as well. You've been doing great on the circuit just overall. So it's been a pleasure to read your work and to watch, just how this thing has been growing. So congrats and really excellent work on this.
Yeah, I'm very honored that the judges in Georgia appreciated the story, liked it, and thanks to them. I know that reading script after script after script as a judge can be tiresome and tough at some points, but I just want the judges to know that as a writer, we really appreciate the time that's taken to look at our scripts and to give us some valuable feedback. And the notes that I got back were extremely valuable. So I'm very appreciative.
Awesome. Well, I'll pass it along. And I think what makes it worth it when you got to pace yourself. If you got 40 screenplays on 40 features on your plate, you obviously can't do them in a weekend. But it makes it worth it when you can tell in the first few pages when something is more refined, easier to read, kind of easy to imagine, easy to visualize. And I think that your screenplay brings all those things. So finding those diamonds makes the process easier. And people just, our judges, they just love to read and they love to discover these new gems. And I will definitely pass on the kind words. So.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Was there anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Well, if I'd love to share this script with those who might be interested. You can go to chadhutson.com and contact me. You'll also see some of the other projects that I'm working on that website. But super excited to be a part of this festival, and so honored to have made the list of the top scripts for Best Feature. So I'm anxious to see what happens at the end of August.
All right. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I've got the link to your website in the description, so hopefully somebody will reach out. And best of luck in the competition. I actually don't even know who's won yet. The judges will come up with it, and we'll see on the 28th. So best of luck.
Cool. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome.